what not to do when delegating to people and managing people.
Basically, he just dumped it on her lap and said, off you
Yeah.
go,
Yeah, crack
here's
on.
everything you need, and then expected it to be a perfect job.
He thought that the process wasn't working. Turns out no one was working the process at all.
And not only that, but then I'm also going to come back to you and I'm going to kick your ass based on whether or not you actually succeeded in something I gave you no chance of succeeding in.
With privilege comes responsibility. Too many business owners focus on the privilege and they forget about the responsibility.
Their team's shortcomings are really just a reflection of their own shortcomings.
Things start to unravel.
Dun, dun, dun.
Delegating or dumping. Now, you may be frustrated with the way your team members are performing, and you might think it's their fault, but in actual fact, it's probably more to do with the way that you've delegated the tasks to them. Tune into this week's podcast where we uncover what not to do when delegating to your team members. Alrighty, you've arrived at the Profitable Tradie podcast with Tony Fraser-Jones, your host, here with Killsmith.
Killsmith.
Kill Smith.
It's making me sound pretty good, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Kill Bill, Kill Smith.
Yeah,
Phil
yeah,
Smith,
sure. Phil Smith.
co-host.
It all ties together, right?
It does, mate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're looking good today, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. You're looking fabulous yourself.
There's a slight pause there.
Well, we've actually just been talking about camera angles, actually, and we're saying how apparently I've got the better camera angle and the better camera, and that's why Tony looks bald. That's why. Yeah. So, actually, in real life, he's got a luscious head of hair, apparently. So,
Apparently, yeah. I don't know what to say.
Well, it's not the topic of today's conversation.
No, a
anyway.
hair transplant may increase my handsome index, perhaps.
Well, it worked for Shane Warne. So anyway, today what we're talking about is how sometimes it feels like your problems are over when you get a new employee. Like you take someone on, you're stoked because it's less work for you got a bit more capacity, and the business can get more done. And you start focusing on all the stuff that you've honestly struggled to get to before because you have that extra manpower. And sometimes the employee even tells you that everything's going great. And so you just get on this high, but
Dun, dun, dun. A few weeks or months later, things start to unravel.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's right. You realize that things aren't quite going the way you wanted. Little warning signs pop up, little mistakes or little complaints from other employees, or perhaps complaints from your clients or your customers. And those warning signs really start to flash up, and you get that like, oh, maybe this isn't all tickety-boo like I thought. And really, this pod today is about, what not to do when delegating to people and managing people so that you don't get this situation where you thought it was covered, but really it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you have a story for us.
I do. So Eamon is one of our coaches, awesome dude, and does a great job with our members. And he put a post in our members Facebook group the other day. And I'm just going to read it out. It's a case study from one of the members. This particular member had $80,000 sitting in their accounts receivable. The business owner gave their administration person our accounts receivable training and the scripts to use last week and just left it to her. Now, a month later, no money had come in. Nothing. Eamon digged into this and found out, did he practice the script with the admin? No. Did he listen to any of the admin's calls to see how she was tracking with it? No. Did he make sure she was actually following the process? No. Sorry, no luck there whatsoever. The result was she made 3 phone calls, she didn't stick to the script, and it turns out she hadn't even watched the whole training webinar. So what this meant was that his business was another whole month behind in cash flow and an even worse position. Even worse than that, he thought that the process wasn't working. Turns out no one was working the process at all.
Well, he hadn't even looked. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, basically he just dumped it on her lap and said, off you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, crack
here's
on.
everything you need, and then expected it to be a perfect job, which is basically that whole dumping, not delegating, and that's where you run into a lot of trouble, man. It's just really not good enough, and you can't expect a better result. So, a lot of negatives if you do get into that dumping mode rather than proper delegation.
Yeah, if you just dump on your team members, almost inevitably you're going to get poor employee performance. You'll get poor results, you get mistakes, misunderstandings. Employee will get frustrated. You'll get frustrated with the lack of results. And what happens, and this is really annoying, it's like a counterintuitive thing, you actually give up on the employees because you're like, well, they don't do their job, they don't do a good job, they make mistakes, it's more trouble than it's worth, they're no good at what they do. And this is a major cause of hardship for business owners is that you feel like you can't trust your employees, that they're not doing a good job, and therefore you don't want to hire any more of them, or the thought of getting more just feels like more hard work, more pain, and nobody's going to grow into pain. And what happens is it actually stalls your business growth. You get super stressed because you're trying to do everything. You can't grow your business because you don't trust anyone to do a good job. Unfortunately, it's because of the dumping, behavior.
Yeah, 100%. Whereas on the other hand, if we actually delegate rather than dumping and put the right, effort into this.
You get good employee performance. You get good business results because they're doing the job the way you want them to. You grow confidence in your team. This is huge. You grow confidence in your team, which means you're prepared to put more responsibility into them. It means you're prepared to hire more people because you can see that that's actually the pathway to success, profit, and freedom in your business. And I can tell you, if you're listening, you have to have a great team and grow your team if you want time, money, and freedom in your business. There is no other way. I haven't figured out another way. We've done this a lot. We've seen people try, but you do need good team. And if you delegate successfully to them, that's going to be a key plank in helping you grow them because you'll be confident that they're actually going to help. Like leverage through team is just critical, and providing great leadership is critical to getting the good leverage.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't work without that. So let's talk about how we actually put this in place.
Yeah, so I've known the concept here that I've here for a while, and there's a phrase that I heard in a movie which really helped me understand this. And the movie was called Amazing Grace. It's about the end of slavery. William Wilberforce in, I think, the late 1700s, late 18th century in England, they passed some legislation eventually that outlawed slavery. And there was a phrase used in this movie, and the phrase was noblesse oblige, which I suppose is it French? Yeah. You understand French. Yeah. And basically what noblesse oblige means, with privilege comes responsibility. With privilege comes responsibility. And if you think about that as a business owner, when you get team, there is a lot of privilege. You may not feel like it. I understand if you're listening, like, what do you mean there's privilege? It's all heartache and pain. But the privilege is there's the potential for other people to do more work for your business, to free you up, to work on other stuff, to grow your business, to make more money, to give you time, to service more clients. There's a lot of upside there. The problem is, and I'm going to be blunt here, and this may be hard for some people who are listening to hear, is too many business owners focus on the privilege and they forget about the responsibility. And that's where the dumping comes in. So the privilege is, here's someone to do it, crack on and do it, and see you later, I'm going to go and do other stuff. But they forget about the work that's required to help their employee be successful. So dumping is really trying to enjoy the reward, the privilege, without any of the responsibility. And I think that noblesse oblige is a great way to understand that. With privilege comes responsibility.
Yeah, or if you're like Spider-Man, it's with great power becomes great responsibility. Kind of same thing.
Yeah. Thanks, bro. Yeah, like
I'm trying to cater to a whole market here.
Well, I thought I would sound somewhat intelligent.
Yeah, you've got like the nice, fancy, well thought out version, and then I've got like Peter Parker coming at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, bro.
You're welcome.
I'm feeling a bit gassed now, man. Like, this is the best I've ever done, man.
Oh, that was awesome. I love it. But I'm just coming in with a little bit of something else.
Yeah, a little bit of something else. I like it, man.
So
Bastard.
I think what we really got to look at here is what is dumping? Because we're saying dumping versus delegate, and I think the big thing is let's look at what it actually is. So for me, dumping is just abdicating responsibility. It's when I give you something and I give you the tools, but in reality, I'm just dropping it on you. And I'm not only dropping it on you, I'm washing my hands of any of the responsibility for whether or not you understand, whether or not you can do this properly, whether or not you feel confident, and whether or not the result is what I want it to be. And not only that, but then I'm also going to come back to you and I'm going to kick your ass based on whether or not you actually succeeded in something I gave you no chance of succeeding in, which is madness. And I think the hard thing is that most employers, the thing they don't realize is that the failures of their employees, right, their team's shortcomings are really just a reflection of their own shortcomings. The failures their team have when they happen are actually the failure of the leader.
Ouch, that's a truth bomb.
Time.
That's a truth bomb.
And if that stings, like if you're thinking, what, not me, then yeah, probably you in particular. Great book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. You should read that if this is striking a nerve with you, and hopefully change your perspective. But it really is true. Like, if you think about it, any employee or team member, if they're having a tough time, if they're struggling, if they're not getting the results that you want them to get, the first thing you should be thinking is, did I give them all of the tools necessary? You know, did I actually train them properly, or did I just show them one time? And then once I was satisfied that they're completely trained and that they really knew what they're doing, did I check in regularly, you know, to make sure that they built confidence? Did I hold them accountable to actually continuing to do the task and build the habit before I finally actually let go of the reins? You know, it's really, really important, because if you didn't do that stuff, then really it's back on you. And even if the person really is the wrong person and it was just a wrong hire, even that's your fault, because your job was to hire the right person. And so if they're not, even that's on you.
And if they're not the right person and you leave them there, which I know a lot of us have done, because it's actually quite emotionally challenging to call out an experienced tradesperson who's just not doing a good job, to sort of cut them off and say, hey, it's not working. But that's what a great leader has to do, because you have to protect the whole team. If you don't, people lose respect for you, and it's a real downhill spiral.
Well, if we look at that, you're protecting the whole team, because, you know, the rest of the team wants to have the right people around them. You're protecting yourself, obviously, because, you know, it's going to help everything move forward. But you're actually protecting the team member in question as well. Like, you would be doing them a massive disservice if you allow them to continue to fail at something that they're unable to do. Like, that's just unfair. You know, if they're the wrong person for the job, then leaving them in that job is just massively unfair. It's not what you should be doing anyway. So, you know, you've got to do something about it one way or the other. You've got to put everything that you can into getting them right. And if you can't get them right, well, then moving them on is actually a real important thing for you to do, not just for you, not for the rest of the team, but for the person in question.
Yeah, and that's cool. And I think the leadership that you're referring to there is massive. And, you know, if you are dumping, it has some characteristics. And I think we should actually tease through some of those things, because if you're listening, you might be thinking, well, no, actually that person was rubbish and it was their fault. And I get that. We all feel like that. And, you know, maybe there is some responsibility with the employee. Of course there is. But you're the boss. And if it's going to change, well, you're the one who has to make that change. And so in terms of dumping, if you do dump, blaming the employee is one of the classic behaviors. Blaming them for the mistakes, blaming them for the situation, for losing the client, for whatever it is, for, you know, ordering the wrong materials, for making a mistake, when piping out the house, or whatever it is. If your constant approach is just to blame, that means that you're actually not taking any responsibility for the result. All you're thinking about is the privilege, not the responsibility. So blaming behavior as a boss is really damaging, and it tends to mean that you are dumping, not delegating.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's one thing. I think you alluded to it. A lack of training or coaching or giving feedback or correction, again, or encouragement as well, actually, that is dumping behavior. It's like if you just set and forget, that is dumping behavior, because there's no correction, there's no course correction for the employee. They don't know what's going well. They have no opportunity to improve. They have no opportunity to get a pat on the back, because, you know, we all know that plants love water. Well, human beings are the same. They flourish with praise and encouragement. And so that's a very important part of delegating to people. And
I think a really important thing when we're looking at training and coaching and, you know, helping people learn, especially if it's a new skill, like, really be critical of how you've done this. You know, I always use tennis as an example, but just because it's something I suck at, and I've never really done much training or learning. But the thing is, if I was going to learn to play tennis, the worst way to do it would be just watch someone play tennis for an hour and now expect to be good, or have someone explain to me how to play tennis and then just expect to be good. One way or another, until I pick that racket up, I'm not actually learning to play tennis. Because I can understand it. I can watch it on TV. I could watch it for years on TV. It doesn't mean I'm be good at tennis. And so if the way you've been training someone on a new skill is that you showed them, and we hear this from people, right? I showed them 1,000 times. I'm like, cool. Did you watch them do it though? Did you give them corrections on what you saw? Because if you didn't do that, you didn't coach them, you didn't train them, you didn't teach them. You just showed off for a couple of hours. I hope it was fun, but it was a waste of time. So that's, you know, be critical of yourself here. Is how have you done this? You know, have you actually seen them perform, and have you given them correction? Because otherwise you haven't trained them. It's that simple.
And once you've done the training and stuff, it's actually critical to have accountability, which means you got to check in. And that might mean, observing them, looking at the KPIs they have, having someone else observe them to see that they're actually following the process that you put in place, because everyone drifts off. Everyone starts with the intent. I mean, no one turns up to work. Well, very few people turn up to work to do a bad job. Most people want to do a good job. And even the best people tend to drift off over time. And so we all need that support to come back and say, hey, are you on track? Are you still doing it the way we talked about? Do we need to change the way we're doing that? That accountability and check-in is very important. That needs to be consistent. And that's
so important.
Big part of responsibility. If you want consistent performance, you need to get, consistent accountability for the person. And the thing is, the winners love that too. They're like, yeah, well, they want to know they're doing a good job as well. And most people, if they're not quite hitting the mark, they actually want to know that. And if you do it consistently, you can help them in the short term to fix small problems rather than letting them go completely off course and making, big mistakes. Especially
if you're working with a new skill. Again, if it's something that's new to the person, they're going to need that accountability right up front, because they haven't formed any habit around it. It's a brand new skill. So, actually replicating that again and again is very difficult. It's not going to be top of mind. This is new. I mean, if you think about it, once upon a time, when you were a kid, everyone, hopefully you remember this, probably once upon a time you didn't like brushing your teeth, and mum and dad had to tell you, have you brushed your teeth? Have you brushed your teeth? Have you brushed your teeth? Come on, let me smell your breath. Go back, do it again. That was only, 30 seconds, all that kind of stuff, right? And you had to have, your bum kicked again and again and again. All right, cool. Question for you. Do you brush your teeth now? Do you have to be asked? Probably not. So that's a really good example of how, when you learn a new skill and it's new to you, you might have to have some accountability put on you in order to form the habit. Once the habit is formed, you don't have to do that forever. But neglecting to do it at all at the start would be naive. People need to build the habit, and sometimes you need a little bit of help. And so help them, give them the ability to build that habit. And after a while, you won't have to do it anymore. But at the start, don't neglect it. Massively important. And another thing that is just dumping is if there's no process or no system to follow. A classic example in the situation that Eamon had is there was actually system and process to follow. There was trainings, there was scripts. We have a whole step-by-step process that you need to follow for your accounts receivable, what calls to make when, what scripts to use where. That was there. Now, even when that was there, it was still dumped because it wasn't checked in and all that sort of stuff. But if you just say to your administration person, hey, I want you to phone the people who owe us money and get some money, well, there ain't no process there. They're nothing. And that is a classic dumping. Oh, well, just kind of, I want you to do this without any clear guidelines of how to do it or how you want it done. Then that is a big problem. Well, you run into unmet expectations, which we've done an entire podcast about, but it's one of those things where you haven't given them any guidelines, but it doesn't mean you don't have them in your head. You have an expectation in your head of what you want. They probably have an expectation in their head of what they think you want. But unless you've written it down and actually become clear on that, then the likelihood these two expectations don't match is really high. And that's where people get disappointed and let down. Well, that's it. That's, no clear expectations of success, no definition of success. Like a classic example, and we may have spoken of this before, is your time cards or your job cards. The owner says, hey, I want you to fill in your job cards on time. Okay, fine. What does that actually mean? Well, what is on time, right? What does on time mean? Yeah, that's the first thing. So how long's a piece of string? What does filling them in completely actually mean? Now, I put my name on it. Yeah, I put my name on it, and I did it on Friday afternoon for the whole week. Well, for last week. Yeah. So, yeah, that's on time. That's before I need to be paid. I think it's on time, whereas the owner's like, I need it to be done when you finish the job. So you do the time card or the job card on the job. You put photos of the job. You put a full description of the bill of materials used and a description of the work done. And then you press stop when you leave. That would be a clear description of what success looks like. Now, unless that's written down and communicated to the employee, it's dumping. Absolutely. Because they're not clear. That's right. Yeah. And you're setting yourself up for failure, really. Frustration for sure. Yeah. If not outright failure. Well, I'd say definitely outright failure. I don't know how you get around that, really. I mean, it's not going to be good. Because if nothing else, as you say, frustration, you're going to be annoyed, and then you're going to probably take that out on your team, which is probably going to affect their performance further. You get resentment. I mean, it goes down a very slippery slope very quick, right? Well, I think you've driven on a really important point there is not only do you get frustrated because they're not performing,
but their experience of the work is not good because they don't feel supported. They feel uncertain, and then that damages the culture of the business. Maybe they complain to other team members, and you get them sort of talking to each other about what they don't like and what's not going well. You get these little subcultures happening, and so it damages the whole thing.
Not just other team members too, Tony. I mean, they're going home and they're telling their wife, their husband, their spouse, they're saying, hey, you know what? How was work today, honey? And they're going home and saying, well, it sucked. Tony was on my ass again.
Yeah, he was unreasonable.
Yeah, I'm working so hard. I'm killing myself with this guy. And, all he wants to do is complain about what I'm, doing and not doing. This sucks. And she's saying, why don't you quit? And you're saying, well, I will.
Maybe I will.
This is festering, man. And then the thing is that then what you don't know is that employee's wife is friends with another employee's wife. And now they're talking. And now, the point is like, you'd be naive to think that, this damage doesn't stretch further than just the one person. I think we're ready to land this plane.
This is the thing. Culture is absolutely critical for a business, and leadership is the biggest thing that drives the culture of your business. And it's not just the leadership per person, because it does have an individual but also a collective effect. And so eventually the culture will fall to bits. So I think the key thing is understanding that it's great to have employees, and that's an awesome privilege. But if you don't take the responsibility, then this will fall to bits and you will get frustrated. Your business won't grow. And frankly, your employees will be just a nightmare for you rather than a godsend. Thanks heaps for listening. We'll catch you all again next time.
See you later.